Hello, welcome. My name is Shri, and I'm from Team 7393, the Electron Volts. And today, we'll be going over how to utilize Scrum in your FTC team. So let's get started. So what is Scrum and why does it matter? The way you do work is crucial to any team success. Truth is, for most of us, we probably are inefficient at doing work right now. This is where Scrum comes in really handy with its simple but effective framework. Scrum is effective as it clearly defines roles and organizes the work according to priority. Rather than spending hours doing monotonous planning, Scrum allows teams to cut straight to getting work done with immediate feedback. This allows for you to make some real progress within a short time. With all these amazing qualities, Scrum is sure to be a hit in every FTC team. So before we actually go over on how to really utilize Scrum in your team and get to the meat of this video, let's go over some key vocabulary so you understand what Scrum is and get how to really use Scrum. So first up is feature/user stories. They're essentially features that you wish to be added on to your robot or tasks that you want to get done throughout the season. They're usually written utilizing the vision for the end result. So basically, there's stuff that you want to get done throughout the season, and they're just tasks, and they're broken down into those categories, which is feature/user stories, and they can be anything from getting outreach done to actually building the robot. Up next is the product backlog. It's basically the full collection of all those feature/user stories, and they represent a wish list for your team throughout the season. After that is the release backlog. They are made from the needed user stories, and they're transferred into the release backlog and are organized by priority and the time needed to complete said work. The release backlog is basically a more important version of the product backlog. It's the stuff that you really want to get done throughout the season. Then there are sprints. Sprints are short duration milestones that allow the team to get a manageable chunk of the project done to a ship-ready state. And what I mean by a ship-ready state is that it's 100% done, you're not going back to fix anything, no. It's done as at the end of the sprint. Whatever task you're doing there, it's done to 100%, you don't need to do any more work. That's the whole point of a ship-ready state. So more vocabulary, there are releases and release cycles. So it's basically a larger term encompassing sprints, and once you've done a release, you reach a key part of the whole season because these release cycles are made up from anywhere from like 2 to 12 sprints. So they're a good part or a chunk of whatever you want to get done throughout the season. Then there is the daily Scrum. It's a 15-minute in-person and stand-up meeting where each member gives a short summary of the work they did and any problems they're facing. Then there's a sprint retrospective. It's basically like the daily Scrum, except for sprints. It's a meeting where the team reflects on their performance during the sprint and any feedback they can get to do better on the next sprint. After that is the burn down chart. It's really important. It's basically a chart where all the hours from the users' feature/user stories are compiled and then used to show the progress made during the whole project. Then there are roles within Scrum. Just like the vocab, the roles are really important. You want to make sure these roles fit your team. So whatever roles I'm going to show in a few seconds, they're basically part of the framework that is Scrum. And you want to make sure that you shouldn't be scared that, each person has only one role. No. These roles, everyone will have more than one role, especially when you're talking about an FTC team. So many people will have more than one role. I think all the people on your team will have more than one role. And so that's important to know. And that's okay because Scrum is a framework that should fit your team. Your team shouldn't fit Scrum. It should always be Scrum fitting your team. You want to make or get the most out of Scrum. So let's get started with the roles. First, there's the backlog manager. They make sure to decide which feature/user stories are significant and decide which one will go into like the release backlog or the product backlog. And they help set up the whole process because without them, you won't have the stuff compiled into sprints or any of that stuff. They make sure which one's important and which are the tasks that you really want to get done throughout the season. Then there's a Scrum Master, basically a fancy word for the project manager. They make sure each person's task is being carried out on time. Simple as that. Then there's a developer, and they basically just get the work done. Everyone on your FTC team will be a developer no matter what they're doing. After that is the tester. Tester basically tests products, basically like your drive team, where they test the robot and if autonomous is working or software working, all that stuff. You want to make sure that Scrum fits your team and not the other way around. That's the main idea. So now is the real meat of the video. Really, it's just going to go over this is the main stuff of the video on how to really get started with Scrum. So let's get started. Your team must first decide what feature/user stories that they want to get accomplished throughout the season. Once these user stories have been created, they will be used to compile into the product backlog. It's basically like brainstorming what you want to get done throughout the season, and then you put a giant list of it. After forming a product backlog, each feature/user story should be prioritized given certain task importance over others. So some things might be more important than other things to your team, and you want to make sure you do that. After prioritizing, the feature/user stories should be estimated. They should be estimated into time. You want to estimate the time it takes to finish said tasks. And a good way to estimate feature/user stories is to estimate by hours, specifically 1, 2, 4, or 8 hours for tasks under a day. Now, if you say I have a task that takes 3 hours, you want to make sure it fits in the 4-hour category. You're not going to make a new category for what it is. Stick to the category that I gave you, or you can change it up, but you want to make sure you stick to that one, and it really just helps make the whole process more fluid. However, if you have tasks that take more than a day, they'll be split into 2, 3, 5, or 10 days, and then it's the same rule as the less than a day one. If you don't make new categories, you just fit them into larger categories, so it's easier to get stuff done. While some tasks might be under a day, over a day, some might take over months, like actually finishing the robot. And you want to make sure whatever tasks, if they're not represented by hours overall, they should be split down into smaller tasks so they can be done in manageable tasks. So if you split them into smaller tasks, you can see how much of the bigger task you're doing. It helps you track how much progress you've made. You want to make sure at the end of the day, all the tasks that you estimate the time for ultimately all lead into like a bunch of tasks that are shown by hours. And this helps track, and it's really important later on, which I will show in a few seconds. And after doing all this prioritizing and time estimating stuff, you've created your release backlog. Once you've created a release backlog, you can start sprinting, and your team can actually start doing Scrum. Now, a sprint, as said before, is a short time where you get a good amount of the work done. And they can last anywhere from 2 to 30 days, but the time of the sprint depends on the release and release cycle. So it depends on how much or like where you're going to put your release or release cycle. It's basically your release should be big or like a good indicator for you getting a good amount of the work done. So one of the releases might be getting stuff done before the first tournament. And you want to put the sprints according to however long your release is. Usually there are like 2 to like 12 sprints in a release cycle, so that shows you how much work that needs to be done throughout a release. And you want to do those sprints throughout those releases, and that's just a way to show how much work you've done so far. So a key part of the Scrum is Scrum shows you how much work you've done. It shows you empirical evidence of the progress being done. And the way that Scrum shows it is in hours. So, as said before, all those feature/user stories should be split into hours ultimately. And each sprint will be made up of these user stories, and those user stories have a set time for it. And ultimately, those times will be compiled into a sprint. So I might have 44 hours in a sprint. That's showing the work that needs to be done. And once I finish one of those tasks, I subtract however many hours I originally put for those sprint, for that user story, I subtract it from the overall sprint hours. And this helps me track how much work has been done. Now, the real way this is shown is through a burn down chart, and it's really useful. So the burn down chart, as I said before, it shows the progress that's being made through these hours. And basically at the beginning, you have the total number of hours from all the tasks that need to be done. Now, once you've had this, you can start doing the work, and slowly those hours will decrease, and it shows that progress is being done. If you're not able to meet a certain hour limit, you can say, I want a certain hour limit by day 30 or day 20. And if you're not able to meet that, your team can adapt, and you can say, oh, I need to do more work so we can meet it. It helps teams manage the work that's being done, and helps them adapt to whatever situation they're facing. And that's why Scrum is really useful. It shows you the progress that you made, and it shows you empirical evidence on, is it really work? Is the stuff your team doing really help get stuff done? It's that feedback that Scrum gives. That's what makes it really useful and a good resource for FTC. Now, another important part of Scrum is to have feedback and reflect efficiently on the work, not just from the Scrum system itself, from the burn down chart, but from the actual members, the people that create the whole process, the roles that I said before. And one of the ways people do this is the daily Scrum. As said before, it's a 15-minute meeting where people can talk about whatever work they did, but it should be quick, and they can also address the problems they're facing. So this helps the team reconvene and helps the team really sync and be as efficient as possible. The whole point of the daily Scrum is to get rid of long, monotonous meetings, but also get whatever important information. So like people, by the end of the daily Scrum, people will know what work's been done, what problems there are, and you'll also be able to come up with like quick ideas to solve those problems, but it will all be done in an efficient 15 minutes. That's it. It's not a long meeting. It's just a short 15-minute stand-up in-face meeting. The stand-up in-face part is really important because it helps the team be active, and it really gets the team moving and not spend that much time communicating. It's just quick, efficient communication rather than long and monotonous communication. And another way this kind of communication is done is through the sprint retrospective. Similar to the daily Scrum, it's also pretty efficient. The team just goes over how they did it on each sprint, and if they're not able to, if they did not do so well on that sprint, they can say, okay, let's do better next time, and you can come up with better ways, like be more focused or get more stuff done or work longer so you can meet those deadlines. And overall, that's what really Scrum is. It gives you the feedback so you can focus on what really needs to be done and to really meet those deadlines. It helps the team make progress because of the feedback part. And all of this communicating and feedback will help ensure peak performance. And that's it for Scrum. Thanks for following along. Now, it's important to find a tool for your team. There are several tools online, free ones. We choose to use MeisterTask. If you go on the Windows App Store or something, on PCs and everything, there should be MeisterTask. It's free. It's pretty good. But you want to make sure that whatever tool you're getting has those important key terms from Scrum, like the burn down chart. That's really important. Product backlog, those user stories. You want to make sure that your team can see whatever tasks that you want to get done, and you want to see that you're getting the stuff done, like see the actual burn down chart and see the data that you're getting from it. That's the important part of Scrum. Whatever tool it is, you can create your own app for all it is, but it's just important to get the data from Scrum. That's the whole important part of Scrum. So thanks again. That's all Scrum is, and we hope you found this video useful. And actually, if you found this video useful, that would be amazing. Also, yeah, that's it. Just make sure you can find a good tool, and we hope you're using Scrum after this video. And that's it. Bye.